Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome. Today's video will be in a slightly different format, actually a totally different format. I have been in this business for 6 or 7 years now, basically a fairly long time. Over the years, I've probably went through, I don't know, definitely hundreds and hundreds of cars, if not like 1,000 plus. And if you guys think this business is easy, everything is peachy, you make money, everything is great, that is far, far from the truth. Today's video, I want to share with you guys my 5 worst purchases. These are the vehicles that I lost the most money on. We're gonna start with, from the top 5, the lowest loss, and we're going to continue up to the worst vehicle I have ever purchased. The first one on the list is a 2012 Kia Forte. I purchased this vehicle out of Seattle and my winning bid was $1,400. Had very minimal damage. It had pretty good miles. And I daily drove it for a few weeks. Actually, I took my wife to the hospital when she was pregnant. She gave birth that morning. Few days after she gave birth, my brother took this car, and as he was driving it on the freeway, the engine seized. It died. We had to tow it. I took it to my mechanic. He spun the motor. Once we started it, it was knocking. So the motor was no good. I tried selling it as is to the general public for about 3 weeks. And when I tell you guys, I have never had customers this bad for any car like I did for this Kia. I had people come out. As always, I disclose, that it has issues. I said the engine is knocking. It's a mechanic special. It'll most likely need a new motor. The price reflected that. But I had people come out, look at it, drive it, and go, well, I know you said it was knocking, but I thought it would be like a tick or like something minor. It was a waste. It was a waste. I counted, I had about 160 people who reached out about this car. And none of them could read. None of them understood. Selling this car annoyed me more than any car sale to date. And I ended up taking it to the auction and I sold it to the first highest bidder. The car actually went to California as a part out. And on this vehicle, I lost $1,381. The second vehicle, I actually took a video of it. This video is available on my channel. If I remember correctly, there's 2 videos on this vehicle. It's a 2013 Ford Escape. I purchased this vehicle out of Odessa and found out it has no reverse. Of course, the vehicle was sold as is. They had a condition report, but they didn't disclose that reverse didn't work, that it basically had transmission issues. Which I believe was kind of really messed up because they disclosed other things like mechanical things. But they said, oh, well, maybe when we inspected it and put it in reverse, it didn't have that issue, or maybe it didn't do it. And I was like, no, it always does it. Like, chances of that are so slim because it literally has no reverse gears. So if you guys are interested in seeing that video, find it on the channel. I'll actually link it in the description below. But I purchased this vehicle for $2,700 plus fees. I ended up selling it to a buddy who ran it through IAA. He made a few $100, but in the end, I lost $1,565 on this Ford Escape. Vehicle number 3, big surprise, is another Ford, and the issues are similar as the previous. This one was a 2012 Ford Fiesta, and it also had transmission issues. It ran fine, like forward reverse, but internally it was making noise. So once you got up to speed, it was almost like a grinding sound. I don't know if I took a video of this vehicle, but you guys could see the pictures of it on the screen. If I did do a YouTube video on this one, I will make sure I link it in the description below so you guys could take a look. But this vehicle I purchased for $2,300 plus auction fees. When I sold it, I ended up losing $1,630. So thankfully, we're climbing just a little bit, but a loss is still a loss. Now on my number 2 list is a Porsche. It's actually a 2008 Cayman S. I purchased this one for $16,250. And I bid on this car in person and everything seemed fine, but again, auctions are extremely loud. There's a lot of commotion, and I would say I'm an experienced buyer, but things like this still happen, which really kind of annoys me. Anyways, I bid on the vehicle and I had some room between, you know, that vehicle and then another one. So I was like, hey, let me go take a look at it. So I find it in the lane as the auction is still happening, and I hear the following. And I thought, uh-oh. Plus, I mean, this isn't a $2,000 purchase, a $3,000 purchase, $16,000. And it's ticking. So of course I start to panic and I'm like, what the heck? But vehicle sold as is, so I own it. I started to reach out to my mechanics. They basically said that this is a lifter tick. So a lifter went bad, maybe collapsed. And both of my mechanics recommended take it back to the auction. Take it back to the auction because this is a, you know, drop the engine service. Although parts are very inexpensive, but you have to, I believe, take out the like rear suspension and literally drop the engine down in order to get to it. It's doable, like inside the engine bay, but extremely difficult. Both of them said, hey, just get rid of it. It ain't worth it. And on this one, I tried everything. I tried lifter additives. I think I did 3 oil changes on this one with various additives, trying to maybe free up the lifters if they were stuck. In the end, it seems like it was just collapsed. During my driving, I probably put 500-600 miles on the car. It drove fine mechanically aside from the noise, but it had a lot of very little issues that annoyed me, which ultimately led me to a decision of not fixing it because headliner was sagging. The weather strip around the driver's window, even when it was fully closed, at like 40 miles per hour, it had a whistling noise. And I would have to replace all the weather stripping there. It needed new tires. They were fairly bald. And then on the driver door, when you pull the door handle, the window's supposed to go down. Sometimes it goes down and then up right away. The glass would kind of hit. So it was super messy. And then it had a race exhaust, like literally a race exhaust. And I have a few clips of the race exhaust. Take a listen. It sounded extremely raspy, just obnoxious, and I did not enjoy it. So I figured even if I do fix the lifter noise, there's so many other things I have to fix. The good thing is, like, overall condition outside, interior was in really good shape, especially the interior, like almost flawless. But it was just too much work. So I had this car actually for about 5-6 months, debating, trying to fix it, driving it here and there. I took it to Copart. It didn't sell there. I thought about retailing it, and I was like, no. So I took it to Mannheim, where I purchased it from. It didn't do well, and then I parked it. It sat on my lot for probably a month, and then I took it to Cross Point, and the first highest bidder, I was like, whatever. Like, I'm over it. That's money tied up. I have no intention of fixing it at all. And I sold the car. The loss was slightly painful in this one. I sold it at a loss of $3,220. So this is my second highest loss to date. Now for the first loss, you guys could pause the video and take a mental guess. Which vehicle did I lose the most money on? It won't be surprising. It's not gonna be a surprise. It's a Range Rover. That's right, it's a Range Rover. This is the second Range Rover I believe I have purchased. First one came out of Texas, and it was a non-runner. It was sold as theft. Beautiful Range Rover. When I got it, put a new battery in it and got a new key from the Land Rover dealer, took it to them, we actually towed it. And they tried to program it and they couldn't do it. And so they diagnosed it a little bit more and found out that there was water in the fuse box. So upon taking another look, the motor never ran. Pulled out the dipstick, it literally had water in the engine. So I don't know what the story was with that Range Rover, but I called the auction. I was like, look, we have paperwork confirming from the dealer that this is water damage. The crazy thing is, interior had no water damage. Everything else in the engine bay had no water damage, but the fuse boxes had obvious water damage. They had corrosion, and then there was water inside the engine. Thankfully, IAA purchased the vehicle back. I took it to a local IAA location, and they sold it on their own. I got all of my money back. I believe shipping from Texas, pretty much everything, but a few like minor expenses. So that was my first experience with a Range Rover. And the reason why I bought a Range Rover, for my wife, because I love her, and you know, just wanted to get her something nice. So that failed. I believe a few months later I found another Range Rover. This one I believe came out of Colorado. And this is the one that I have lost the most money on. The amount is actually, it's very painful. But this one came with hail damage, and when it arrived, I started it, it had a misfire. So naturally thinking, hey, it's something minor. I replaced all the spark plugs, all the ignition coils, did an oil change on it, and still has a misfire. So then we started to kind of look deeper into what could have happened. This is how I found my first mechanic, the mechanic that I still use to this date. He went through it. We did a whole bunch of stuff to the vehicle. In the end, it turned out that there was a cooling component that failed. The Range Rover was overheated and cracked the head. So the owners parked it at their house. Hailstorm came, it hailed on it, insurance totaled it out, and I purchased it. So since it was out of state, I was racking my brain, like, what could I have done differently? The only thing that comes to mind is not buy it. But at that point, like, you don't know. And it just shows you, like, this example is very, I would say, drastic, and it doesn't happen often. But it was just super convenient for the previous owners. They completely busted the motor, cracked the head, parked it, and hailstorm totaled out the vehicle. But again, beautiful example. So we tried a whole bunch of stuff. We did a new timing chain in it. We did new head gaskets, trying to fix it. We got the heads machined and everything else, and it would run for like 30-40 minutes, and then it would start to misfire again. So in the end, the decision was made to put a new motor in it. After I spent probably $3,000–4,000 on labor up until that point, trying to get it done and fixed, we ended up putting a new motor in it, which was actually a $4,000 motor plus labor and everything else. Vehicle at that point was done, and my wife actually used the vehicle for maybe half a year or so, but in my mind it was so like tainted, if you will, that every time I looked at it, every time we drove it, one, I was like, okay, when is it going to break down again? And two, it was just like such a unsuccessful purchase, such a like painful story with it, the headache that came with it, and everything in between, that I decided to sell it. And trying to sell it for a decent amount, but surprisingly, there wasn't a lot of buyers for it. I mean, it's a beautiful Range Rover. But I sold it a few years ago, so this is not a recent story, and I actually ended up selling it for $5,000. And this is a 2006 Range Rover Supercharged. What I was into this Range Rover was $13,002, and I sold it for $5,000. So I lost $8,002 on this car. Since then, I haven't purchased another Range Rover. But one thing I will tell you about Range Rovers, they are beautiful and they really do drive on the road like nothing else. I mean, they handle themselves very well. They feel so planted. The vehicle that comes to mind the closest is a G-Wagon. Not the newer ones, but up until like 2017 G-Wagons. They feel very, very similar. They feel heavy on the road. They feel like they own the road. I mean, just super planted, beefy, and just really almost like brutal, if you will. So they're fantastic for that. But they have so many issues, and I wouldn't buy one because, you know, I went through that meat grinder and I lost $8,000. That to date is the biggest loss I have ever had on any vehicle. It's painful. It's very painful. I really appreciate you guys watching. I know this wasn't a standard video, but if you did like the format of this video, please consider subscribing. Drop a comment in the comment section below. Maybe I could do 5 vehicles you should never buy to flip, or maybe 5 of my best profitable flips. Let me know what you guys think. As always, I really appreciate your support. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in another video.